That signals the importance of the sector itself. That also signals that whatever had been preliminary been looked at in terms of oil and gas could be also that the public should know that this is actually true when the president actually knows how much could be within the borders of the country in terms of oil and gas, number one. The other thing also, it creates trust. It creates public trust. So it also creates trust from the investors when they know that the presidency actually has this within its central. Of course, other arguments may be it can be maybe too much of control because now it's like monitoring the most important sector. But for us as Namibia, we have never dealt with that sector before. So it's important that, and I like what she said. She said, all of us don't have experience in oil and gas. So monitoring this sector very closely, I think it will be to our advantage so that we can really create good pillars that can assist the country in the future.
Mm-hmm. So the plan to reduce agriculture imports by 80% is quite ambitious, wouldn't you say? And what are the main challenges that will, hinder this to be achieved?
Yeah, that one I agree that's overambitious because when you look at it, we have heard droughts for longer periods, over 10, 15 years. So to undo that over 5 years, it's a bit ambitious. But of course, if they can set good targets slowly but surely, and they build on, I think it can be achievable. The challenge I just have with that one is that, every leadership that comes, you see that we rarely get succession from previous. Yes, we get here and there, but the challenge we have is taking over. So if this can actually be planned properly in the next 10 years as well, for me, then we'll be able to get somewhere. Because if we are to do 5 years and then we don't put proper targets, because there's a lot to be done. There were actually green schemes that stopped long back. And some green schemes were given to public-private partnership, and nothing has happened. There was no accountability, there was nothing. And then the other aspect is just to look into the infrastructure development of agriculture. That in itself, it will need, again, technocrats, high-skilled people, so of which we may not have in the country. So yes, it is doable, but we need to look at critical aspects on the ground, including technical expertise to overhaul the whole agricultural sector, and also with consultation and all the so. Yes, we can achieve, but not necessarily that which we may have planned. But it's achievable, but in a longer period of time.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are seeing more emphasis on creative industries and film. Do you see this as a niche economic driver, or is it more symbolic?
I'm telling you, that's actually a very good shift in the 21st century, in the contemporary world that we are in the world where social media has taken space, digitalization has taken place. I think really the president really put a very good thought to that. And not only that, if you remember our census report, our youth are the most, 71%. So in other words, you have got this 71% that are so creative and that are in the space of entertainment. If you look at other countries, let's say even the US or even Nigeria, in creative industry, they make billions out of that, through filming, through many digitalization programs. So I think that was, it's a good idea to actually invest in that. It's first of its kind. And within 5 years, let's see how it builds and but for me, it's really a good shift to address issues of the youth, to address issues where also the youth are found, and that's the digital space. So for me, I'm looking forward to see what will be implemented there. I'm looking forward to see, first ever areas of industry, and also looking forward to the National Arts, award that is being planned, just to see how will that be. But for me, it's a good idea. Youth are there. We may take them off the street. We may give them something also for them to be busy with, and even use also their gadgets to be more creative because they know they'll be rewarded for it.
Well, tertiary education, for one, is set to be 100% subsidized from the year 2026. How sustainable do you think this is, and what risks should the country prepare for?
That one is it's an exciting one, but also, I'll say it's a mixed one, because I think we should also draw lessons from how it has been with basic education. Basic education, it has also been free. So maybe to draw lessons, okay, how was it sustainable? To what extent are we yielding the results? Because at the end of it all, it's very good to really tell students that, okay, this is what will happen. Secondly, is the cost of running education. The cost of running education also becomes very, very important to note. We may go in that space, but the question will be, do we have enough, capacity to accommodate the influx of students coming from the schools? Because the current situation has been, other colleges also are also assisting in absorbing the market. But if the two state institutions are now going that they will be free, are they able to accommodate everybody? Number one. Number two, do they have the right capacity in terms of qualified lecturers, trainers, instructors, to be able to really bring out the right quality? Because all those are costs, okay? I'm not saying it's not doable, but the aspect of sustainability is where I'm worried of. Because now we are starting next year and we will be in honeymoon for 4 years. And then maybe she's given another term, okay, we are still in honeymoon maybe for the next 9 years. But the one will come after. So the stability there is actually questionable. Secondly, the resources. Do we have sustainable resources that can actually aid this idea? So if we can say maybe, okay, from every royalty within our, from our mineral resources, maybe we can take a 2%, 5% to sustain this, or maybe from our this and this. There must be a method to sustain this idea or this, good lunch. Otherwise, we may eat it, everything, and then in the near future, we may not have. Of course, some are arguing this has been the case even in the early 90s. Some of them went to school. They did not get loans, they got grants, and today they are saving the nation. That's very good. But things changed. The economy changed. Inflation also is rising. Back then, inflation was more manageable. Now inflation is rising. Just per student, you may already spend almost between around about 25,000 to 50,000, depending on the cost that you're doing. So it's a good idea. We welcome it, but we just want to see the government putting methods and all the necessary aspect on how we can sustain for the next 10 or so years.
Right. So the reintegration of NASFA into the Education Ministry, could that improve service delivery, or would it create more red tape instead?
With that one, it's more closer to, to the center of authority or the center of power. So there can be pros and cons as well. In the fact that monitoring and evaluation will be closely, number one. Number two, they will also have to go through, even when they will do their procurement aspects, now they will have to go through the ministry. And also probably maybe management will be much closer, because the ministers and those in authority will have much closer look at it. But all in all, the intention of NASFA to be separated from the ministry previously was to really improve efficiency and effectiveness. Probably maybe along the way we might have lost maybe some strings were a bit loose, but they entirely, that was the idea. So that it manages itself, it looks into critical aspects, it removes red tape and everything and so on. So that was the main idea. But of course, we know what happened and everything. Probably maybe there were some loopholes, there was some, risk aspects that were not well mitigated. Hence, maybe there was some loop. But I believe that if it comes back, then they have to look into those aspects that you are mentioning. So they need to make sure that bureaucracy is dealt with. They need to make sure that funding is on time. Because the challenge with NASFA is not that they were not paying. NASFA was paying, but they paid late. NASFA administration, sometimes they missed a lot of deserving students, but they were actually not there. there was also a bit of lack of monitoring as to, following the criteria as to who really qualifies. So all those aspects, if it's brought back, then they can actually look at lessons learned. What were the critical aspects that actually were a challenge on the other side? Then they can iron out that one to reclaim the trust of the students, to reclaim the trust of the taxpayers, and to really look at the purpose of NASFA to cater for the students, for them to be able to be capacitated skill-wise. But I don't know now.
Let's quickly, let's quickly go onto the issue of housing, because we are fast running out of time. Upgrading informal settlements was another highlight. What would effective public-private collaboration look like in this space?
In that one is a critical one, because as we speak now, in most cases, public-private partnership has costed a lot in terms of the end user. When we have got a private company coming in, and then they do service of the land, and then they actually calculate their cost, and then the end user suffers. We have actually examples of town councils and even the city of Windhoek, where they tried to service the land themselves. And when that happens, yes, we know they did not do much of profit, but it was actually good for the residents because the cost was actually really, really affordable. So the private partnerships in terms of housing should be well regulated. Okay, private companies should not come in with the full aim of making full profit. They say, the Chinese proverb says, small is beautiful. If they can also come in with the notion of saving the nation to actually complement the government, and they make profits small as they move. I think for me that would be the best idea. Unlike coming in and say, we have this tender, it's like a lifetime opportunity, and we grab the most, and then who suffers? The third party. That's now the residents who are in need of housing. And then lastly, due to time, maybe to also revise policies, regulation that actually within the NHE. NHE was created for a sole purpose to also look into housing. So the question will be also, what has been actually the challenges with the backlog? What have been the challenges with the, building this house? So if they can also review their strategies to help government halfway, I think that will also assist into meeting the backlog we have in housing. Housing is an issue countrywide, and I think for me, public-private partnership should also be well looked at, and to look at those private companies that come in solely to render service and build the nation in terms of housing.